everyone, and welcome to another News Coolum video. So I just picked up a 2023 Chevrolet Bolt EUV Redline edition for review. So expect a lot more videos on this as I put it through a few different paces, do a little bit of testing. But, I couldn't help myself. The moment I received it, the first thing I had to do was test out Super Cruise. So I don't want to make this intro too long because I recorded a decent chunk of driving. So not a long drive, but long enough for a video. So I just want to go ahead and I speak to it as I'm using it. Just some initial thoughts though before I get into the video. It was really easy to engage. Got started right away when I got on the freeway. In fact, it started up and engaged before I was even ready to start talking about it. But right now, California's getting hit with an atmospheric river, so the conditions weren't great. The roads were slick, the visibility was poor, and and just a lot of rain. So and it's still raining now. But anyway, let's just jump right into it. It was just a quick highway run, followed by a test to see if it worked on the state route. Let's just jump right into the video. Here we are. We're approaching the Maxwell rest area. There's a Caltrans charger here. Not great. I'm on Super Cruise, and let me notice it's going blue as I switch into another lane. I have my adaptive cruise control on, and that's what allows Super Cruise to engage. So you have to do adaptive cruise control first, then Super Cruise will go on. Unfortunately, the version of Super Cruise in the Chevrolet Bolt EUV is not the one that will read prompts from your blinker. So I flip it. I still have to be the one to manually change lanes. It turns blue. But what I've noticed is once I turn that blinker off and get back in my lane, it really does not take that long at all for Super Cruise to engage again. I don't have to press anything else. It's almost like the blue just goes to a sort of temporary override. So you've got the adaptive cruise control, just adjusting your length. I think I have it, I had it the farthest, which I'm fine with. But this is Interstate 5, so it's clearly a mapped road. But I haven't had any disengagements so far in probably about 6 miles of driving on Super Cruise so far. It should be almost 7 miles. So yeah, it's been handling it very well. Hasn't asked me to put my hands back on the wheel yet. I'm keeping my eye on the road. Just personally, for me, I still don't fully trust these systems. So even if it wasn't a requirement, I would be keeping my eyes on the road. I'd be watching everything, just monitoring and making sure everything is going well. But yeah, so far, everything is going well. We're in rainy, wet conditions, and it's keeping me centered, taking corners, I think a little bit cautiously, but given the traction available right now on the freeway, I don't blame it. I would have probably taken those curves in the freeway at a very similar pace. So overall, I'm super impressed with Super Cruise. In this model, it's a $2,200 add-on. I don't know if that's fully worth it. Like, that's a lot of money to me for really all I want is something that's more of an emergency system. But I could see getting used to having this kind of capability and this functionality available to you, especially if you do a lot of long trips. I just don't like the idea personally of being lulled into a false sense of, not having to rely on my own driving skills. So but yeah, so far it's handling everything extremely well, and yeah, I'm just keeping my eyes, more or less monitoring the road, adjusting the mirror, doing what I need to do here or there. cruise control set at 70, so that's the posted speed limit. I think it will move past that a little bit. You know, if I up it, I think it will comply. If I want to do 73, it's going to let me do that. And then, of course, adaptive cruise control should kick in when I get close to this semi up here. And yeah, it's already starting to slow me down. And like I said, this is, unfortunately, the newer systems will let you, they will steer around the person for you, whereas this, you still have to manually steer. But the engagement, disengagement, re-engagement, I'm really impressed with. This, again, this is a mapped road, but we're talking seconds, right, before it re-engages. So I don't know if it doesn't, maybe, yeah, it does it even with the blinker on. So it's not like you need to remember to turn the blinker off. It just re-engages the moment you're centered in a lane and you let go, basically, of the steering wheel. You're not trying to overpower the system, but there's resistance, and this is actually something I really do like about this system. There's resistance, but it's not something that you have difficulty overpowering. If I want to take complete control of this car right now, I can. And that's a little bit more reassuring. You know, from other self-driving systems, I don't know. That was a nice little weird dip under undulation, wet road, shifting from this sort of tarmac to smooth pavement. It's handling this all really, really well. So I'm super impressed with Super Cruise right now. Super impressed. So again, turns blue when I take over, turn it off. I'm kind of holding the line here. Adaptive cruise control is still on, which is nice, because I would have had to have adjusted for this other semi here, but it's doing it for me, brings me down to 60 miles an hour. When the semi gets out of the way, it'll be interesting to see how much it accelerates. But yeah, the moment the conditions are right, Super Cruise just says, hey, I can take this wheel. So yeah, Super Cruise, take the wheel. And again, we're getting decent rain. This isn't what I would consider a torrential downpour, but it is significant enough weather that, yeah, I could see this being a challenge maybe for some, especially earlier self-driving systems. But yeah, this is just a nice little jaunt up the freeway in Northern California in the middle of a rainstorm, and so far I have no complaints. This has built quite a bit of trust. Now, I will head, once we get to Willows, I'm gonna head up a state highway. Now that state highway, I don't know if it's mapped or not. And if it is, I don't know how far it's mapped. And that is one of the kind of issues with Super Cruise right now, or a lot of these LiDAR self-assisted driving platforms, is they're geo-fenced in the sense that they're primarily designed right now, or primarily enabled right now, for freeways and interstate driving, not so much for highways. I totally get the automakers saying, hey, city driving, school zones, that sort of thing, hard pass. I get that, and I agree. I want the actual driver, at least for now, to be the one that's driving in those situations. But there are also quite a few highways that litter the different states, and I would like to make sure that those highways are covered with Super Cruise as well. I did talk to a Bolt EUV owner who was using Super Cruise on Highway 395, so that is one of those scenic California highways, a rural highway, not necessarily an interstate, and Super Cruise worked on that as well. So in fact, he said he drove from Reno to Independence, or Independence to Reno, which is nearly the full range of this car, and had only one disengagement, I think is what he said. So yeah, we have another 11 miles to go to get to Willows. So I'm just gonna keep on keeping on with this. Maybe shift lanes back and forth a few more times as we get around the semis and some of the slower moving traffic. But realistically, I'm super impressed, right? So it just takes over when it can take over, and lets you know that it's active when the steering wheel is blue. Yeah, this is really impressive from Super Cruise. So yeah, GM did a great job with this. Like I said, it might be nice to have that sort of higher end model that will, or higher end version, that when you turn on the blinkers, it moves it over automatically. I could see how that would be a real nice benefit to have. Hopefully I can review the Cadillac Lyriq sometime soon in the future, because I believe the Cadillac Lyriq does have that newer updated version. So all I would have to do is hit the blinker and it would say, oh yeah, you can, I know to move around this vehicle, I know to move back into this lane, I understand what it is you're asking me to do. But I feel like, at least for freeway driving, once you get to that point, you're really not too far off of being able to drive point to point, basically charging point to charging point, starting point to destination, with zero engagement from the driver, from the point you get onto the freeway to the point you exit the freeway. Just basically all you're doing is monitoring, overwatch, as they say, the system. And you can see the rain is starting to pick up a bit, and we have some slower moving traffic, some people who are wanting to go much faster in the left lane. And here we go around a corner. My hand is at the ready. Like, I'm seeing this water. We're getting to the point of areas where you could start to hydroplane. And so I don't know how Super Cruise would handle hydroplaning, but I'm going to be overly cautious in that I don't want to put Super Cruise into a situation where it fails. So it took a little bit of time there to reorient itself, but honestly, my visibility right now is not great. So the rain that's coming down, it's kind of sheeting a little bit. There's a little bit of muck coming up from the roads. So yeah, I mean, I can't blame Super Cruise for taking just a little while longer to re-engage and get oriented. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how long I should let this video run for, because truth be told, I mean, I'm just gonna let Super Cruise go until I exit the freeway. And again, I know this is Interstate 5. This is a freeway that needs to be mapped, that's definitely mapped for Super Cruise and other self-driving systems. But if this is representative of what Super Cruise is capable of doing when driving on these mapped roads, then I'm all for it. I mean, this is gonna really help with driver fatigue. It's gonna really help with people sort of losing track of where they are when they're driving. It's a good way of keeping you on the road in a safe path, and it's a healthy balance of also being able to disengage quickly when you feel like you want to take over. So yeah, let's see. I mean, we're coming up on here. And I guess maybe, well, I don't really feel comfortable leaving it on as I exit the freeway in Willows, because I know that freeway exit, it's not one that I would want to leave self-driving engaged for. I'm coming into a a populated area with a lot of pedestrians, a lot of foot traffic. There's no reason to have a self-driving system that's meant for cruising engaged in that circumstance. So I'll disengage it at that point. Now I also am assuming here, again, this is a nice corner, water on the road, it's taking that line, but I'm also assuming here that Super Cruise will disengage very easily simply by turning off your cruise control, your adaptive cruise control. So that's just an assumption, but I guess we'll have to test it out. Yeah, and so we're not going to exit here. I suppose we could. This is Road 57. By the way, any charging providers who are watching, feel free to contact this Chevron station over here right off of Road 57. Big parking lot, right off the freeway. Great location for a charging site, basically. Even if it's just a couple of those free wire chargers to give people an extra boost. This is an area that's mostly used. Yeah, look at the sheeting on this windshield, just the amount of water coming up right now. And Super Cruise isn't even batting an eye. But yeah, this Road 57X, it's mostly used by locals, but travelers have a reason to use it too sometimes. So and of course truckers use it. Swift drivers, so use caution. But yeah, so yeah, again, another nice corner coming around. There's what is this, a bus or a semi on the road ahead of us? But we're dump truck. Okay, so we're exiting in a couple of miles, so we should be able to jam it around these two. And there's a nice little curve and then hill that you have to come up here. Actually, am I remembering that exit might be before the hill? Oh, what the hill? Let's see. Do I need to get around him? Yeah, I think. So I'm gonna slow down. And actually another trick too, might as well test it here. The Bolt EUV still has the regen on demand paddle, which is a great job, GM, thanks for keeping that. But when you press it with adaptive cruise control on, it shuts off adaptive cruise control, which in turn should shut off Super Cruise, as you just saw. So that was I don't know, maybe it doesn't like that, but personally that's how I like disengaging the adaptive cruise control or cruise control in the Bolt EV. It's just pull back on your regenerative braking, your regen on demand paddle, because what that does is it starts you braking automatically, but like I said, it automatically turns off the adaptive cruise control, and I do it so I can re-engage. So I get that maybe they need some sort of significant warning there when Super Cruise goes off, but I know it's going off because I'm the one that's actively wanting to take control. So I don't know, maybe there's a balance there where it doesn't need to be so dramatic that Super Cruise is shutting off. because I'm the one that actively did it by pulling the regen on demand paddle, but I can also understand it because the regen on demand paddle is something that's easy for someone to bump into on accident. And if they do that, then you want them to know that Super Cruise is disengaging, right? You don't want them to bump it and think that they're still able to drive hands-free, because that's not actually the case. Oh boy. Busy day at Walmart. Now, I could DC fast charge here at the Electrify America chargers, but I don't know that I want to yet. Maybe if they're not busy, then maybe I will. I did just see a Polestar leaving, so and this first 150 kilowatt charger wasn't working the last time I was here, so I don't know if I want to try it again. But let's just do a quick, because I want to show this too, is when you put it in reverse, right, you've got some really good views. So, and then actually, I got used to not having one pedal driving apply when you're in reverse, and they've actually put a new system in where it does apply. So there's no creep, there's no nothing. So I want to clear that curb. Only young kiddos curb their wheels. But yeah, you can see how much of a... Oh, that is so interesting. Looks like we're being joined by a Ford E-Transit, so that's pretty cool. But anyway, I got to pick up some kitty litter, and then we will continue our Super Cruise journey. All right, well, kitty litter picked up. Like I said, we were joined by a Ford Transit, which is pretty cool. And the easy listening comes on. That's been an issue with these cars from the very beginning, is even when you leave the radio on, it comes, or even when you leave the radio off, it comes on if you turn the car on and off again. So hopefully that's something eventually that we can see GM correct with their vehicles, because it is kind of annoying when you leave the radio off. You don't want it to automatically turn back on again. Sort of been a chronic issue over the years. So what we're going to try to do here is we're going to head up Highway 162, which is a state route. So for those of you who are familiar with performance driving, race car driving, things like that, we're heading up toward Thunder Hill Raceway, which is actually where Tesla does a lot of their testing. And it's actually where Lucid does a lot of their testing too. I saw a Lucid Air Sapphire heading up to the track not too long ago, and I saw a Lucid Air early on charging up on the same Walmart charger, Electrify America charger that we were just using. So they come up here quite often, but this is technically a state highway, but it's a fairly narrow road, and let's just see if we can get it to... Alright, so we've got our cruise control on, and then cruise control is not available. This is no road information. So unfortunately, so you do still have your adaptive cruise control, but this is one of those highways where it's not actually available. And this is just a basic 2-lane road. It can get a little bit, touch and go here or there on some of the curves, and otherwise though it's considered a fairly decent road by locals. So hopefully, yeah, State Highway 162. Hopefully it's something that Super Cruise can cover in the near future. But then again, it's also not a long road, so it's not like you're missing out on too much. And again, adaptive cruise control still does work. So far so good. Super impressed with GM's Super Cruise, even this early version in the Chevrolet Bolt EUV. And yeah, so I think for now I'm just gonna head home and get the kitty food home, and we'll call it a day for this atmospheric river. One last try. Super Cruise not available. Oh well. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful and interesting. As I noted, right, on Interstate 5, that driving, 0 disengagements. It handled itself really well. The Chevrolet Bolt EUV handled itself really well on the freeway. And then the adaptive cruise control has always been pretty good. But then in combination with the Super Cruise, yeah, it just makes driving long distances on those straight, long interstates pretty easy. You can disengage it. Apparently, it yells at you, but you can disengage it by using the Regen on-demand paddle, which is how I often end up disengaging adaptive cruise control in my own Chevrolet Bolt EV. And then, of course, unfortunately, the Super Cruise version for this, well, one, doesn't have the automatic lane change when you use your blinkers while you're driving. That would be a nice feature to have, but you have to pay a little extra for that. Go with something like the Cadillac Lyric has that sort of capability, but the Bolt EUV doesn't. This has the older version of the Super Cruise. And then the other thing is the state route that I was driving on is not mapped for Super Cruise yet. But to be fair, it's a smaller state route. It's not as heavily trafficked, but it's something that eventually I'd like to see GM continue to add miles and mapped miles to Super Cruise, because I think it is very effective for, like I said, highway, interstate, freeway driving. I'm still not sold on these driver assist functionalities being used in cities, in congested areas, in especially in and around schools. That really kind of is something that concerns me a little bit. And then where I live too, there is an added concern about things like wildlife, and then you have livestock, things like that. There's a lot more potential for things to go wrong with some sort of debris, obstruction, animal in the roadway. So I can see using a little bit more caution with these driver assist features for those scenarios. And then, of course, when you do something like a city taxi, commercial taxi, that sort of thing, that's where you really do need level 4 to level 5 autonomy, because those vehicles just need to be able to operate on their own without any assistance or input from a driver. Shouldn't even need a steering wheel, right? So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I hope it was interesting. Like I said, Super Cruise handled it like a champ, and I will have this car for about a week, so hopefully I'll have a chance to test out Super Cruise in more conditions on more roadways, maybe even in worse conditions, we don't know. But if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and thank you for watching.